Probably one of the absolute biggest mistakes I made as a player so far, and that definitely cost me a couple of years of good progress. What's up YouTube community, BERNTH here, welcome back to the channel. Today's video topic is extremely important. I'd like to go through the 5 biggest mistakes I made as a beginner guitar player together with you. And of course this is not meant to be a therapy session for me. I want to make sure that you have some great insights and some great takeaways from this video concerning your own guitar progress, and hopefully you can learn something from my mistakes and my failures in the past. So let's not waste any more time and start right away. The first topic I'd like to discuss today might be something you're very familiar with. It's completely ignoring anything concerning music theory. This is a very common cliche that us guitar players are associated with. What I'm talking about here are topics like not being able to visualize the notes on the fretboard, not even knowing about very helpful and basic systems like writing songs in the key, and not knowing about intervals, arpeggios, helpful ideas and shortcuts like the caged system, scales, sight reading, improvisation, reharmonization, ear training, chord substitution, and so on. I think you get my point by now. So in the beginning I was convinced that I will always play according to my ears and according to my heart, if you want to be dramatic about it, and that all this complicated music theory knowledge just stands in the way of being creative and expressing yourself on the guitar. In my opinion, that's just a very common excuse, because one of the most embarrassing moments of my life was when I signed up to study jazz guitar at the conservatory, and in the entrance exam I was simply asked to improvise over a blues in F major, and of course I had no idea what I was doing. It sounded absolutely terrible, and all those years and experience from touring with different metal bands and focusing on very complex techniques like super fast alternate picking, sweep picking and all that crazy stuff really didn't help me at all at this moment. So at this point, relatively late in my career, I decided that I definitely have to do something about that. And as soon as I understood basic concepts like chord construction, hearing intervals and cadences, composing in a key or improvising over jazz standards, really accenting those chord changes, it all started making sense for me, and I was still playing and composing the music that I really liked, so the music theory aspect didn't dictate what I was doing on the instrument all the time. So I really recommend to work with this as soon as possible. That's why I want to include helpful music theory information in pretty much every single YouTube video that I upload, and I put a big focus on that in my online courses, combining technique and theory in an interesting way, because most of us rock, metal and shred players are very interested in technique. So I would recommend starting out with learning all the intervals you can play on the guitar and their names and especially their sound. Developing those basic ear training skills really helped me with getting a head start in the beginning. The second topic I'd really like to discuss today is concerning technique on the other hand. So concerning this second topic, one of my biggest regrets as a beginner guitarist is not focusing on developing a clean and efficient technique from the beginning. As a beginner, I always thought that the term technique simply stands for different techniques on the guitar, like alternate picking, tapping, sweep picking and so on. But what this overall term stands for, or what it should stand for in my opinion at least, is how you are playing guitar. To give you a couple of examples of what I mean by that is, how is your wrist positioned, for example, when you're playing guitar? Does it look like that? Or does it look like that? Are you using your entire arm like that when you're alternate picking, or is the motion simply coming from your wrist? Is your thumb always sticking out like that when you're playing, or is it positioned behind your middle finger, for example? So really just overall observations concerning your playing style, and sometimes those small annoying mistakes and bad habits really stand in the way of reaching your guitar goals. A very interesting counter argument against obsessing over technique is that some amazing players actually have some really weird technique habits that actually kind of contribute to their sound and creativity. And while that is a legit point and I can actually relate to that, for me those bad habits always kind of stood in the way of playing what I wanted to play. So I can really recommend working on a fundamental, clean and efficient technique right from the beginning concerning your left and also your right hand, of course. It's really annoying and time consuming when you notice that you're stuck at a certain point after many years of playing and you kind of have to reshape and remodel your playing style. That's what happened to me a couple of years ago with both hands actually. I could play and compose some really cool stuff that I was quite happy with, but I felt like my weird picking picking angle that I had, and my inconsistent left hand with the flying pinky finger kind of held me back when I was working on very challenging material. I have a lot of really helpful videos concerning left and right hand technique right here on YouTube. Over the last years I made it one of my biggest goals to share all the exercises that really helped me with reshaping my technique and that got me the best results. And of course you can also download the tabs, guitar profiles, practice backing tracks, video play alongs and much more for all of these videos on my Patreon page, patreon.com/BERNTH, if you would like to start improving today. Now the third topic I'd like to talk about concerns guitar progress in general and motivation. When I started out playing and practicing as a beginner, I wasn't really focused on specific goals. I basically just wanted to get better at the instrument and just did everything that my teacher told me to do back then. But one thing that I learned from my beginner students in the last couple of years is that they made much faster and more substantial progress when they were defining specific goals, sometimes even in a defined time frame. Of course, you want the assistance and feedback of a teacher in the beginning because you don't want to set completely unrealistic goals and then get really disappointed with not reaching them. But one of my students recently defined a very specific goal in the form of learning a certain song in a certain time frame. So in the sessions we always had these kinds of no pressure deadlines that we were working towards. And even when he didn't make it in time with learning all the techniques that were required for playing this song accurately, he made much better and faster progress than me in the beginning because I wasn't really that focused on anything particular. Another really great thing about setting those goals, especially later in your career when you gain some experience, is that you slowly start to master the stuff you really care about and the techniques or theory concepts you really need to play and compose the music that you love. So sometimes it's definitely not useful to really drill different technique and theory topics that you're quite sure you're never going to use in the practical context. And when you define and work towards those right goals that really align with you as a player and what you want to play and achieve on the instrument, you will make much faster and more productive progress. The fourth really interesting topic that I really care about is working with a practice plan. Now this is something I talked about in other videos already in great detail, but I really want to feature it on this list as well because it's incredibly important. When I started out as a beginner guitar player, I never worked according to a practice plan and my teachers also didn't introduce me to that concept at all. So I was just kind of randomly jamming for hours, sometimes working on exercises, other times not really working on exercises at all when I was picking up the guitar. And of course that was mostly fun and there's nothing wrong with having fun with the instrument. But in the end I did get quite frustrated with this approach because I didn't see any progress over the course of multiple months. And in my opinion and personal experience, guitar progress really comes from consistency. So you will extremely benefit in the beginning if you spend 1 hour or at least half an hour every single day with the guitar, instead of practicing 4 to 5 hours, maybe just once or twice a week. In case you don't know about it by now, here's a quick summary of my personal approach concerning that. I like to work with a routine that is at least 1 hour long, and I divide this hour into smaller blocks of 15 or 20 minutes. These blocks could be called alternate picking, legato playing, or anything music theory related, for example. So I really just work on these topics in this given time frame, and over the entire practice routine there's no free playing, no jamming allowed. This 1 hour is completely dedicated to getting better and making progress on the instrument. All the fun stuff like improvising, composing, writing songs, learning songs and all that comes after that. And by being really consistent with this routine I got some really good results over the last couple of years, so that's what I definitely can recommend to you. If you would like to learn more about this topic, I would recommend checking out the video I made called Why You Make No Guitar Progress. And the fifth topic I'd like to discuss concerns teaching once again. So I personally had a couple of quite helpful teachers in the beginning that showed me a lot of very interesting things when I was starting out, but I couldn't find a teacher in my area that was into shred guitar playing, sweep picking and 8-finger tapping and all those crazy things. So I had a long period of studying all that quite technical stuff by myself back then, so there wasn't really any real help and guidance involved when it comes to that. But once I started studying jazz guitar at the conservatory, I learned from a lot of really amazing players that were far ahead of me back then in terms of technique and also theory. So that was extremely inspiring inspiring and very motivating for me back then, and I could actually prepare questions every single week and ask them directly to the teachers to get some feedback on my own technique and theory knowledge. So I think in those 4 years of studying guitar at the conservatory, my progress curve was pretty much shooting up, and it proved to me once again since I started out how important it is to have this kind of challenging musical environment where you can ask for guidance and help. Of course, that kind of direct input, feedback and coaching is something that I focus on with my shred guitar community on Patreon, but I can also really not recommend enough to find players that are better than you and to sit down with them and study together with them and to learn from them. You are never done when it comes to learning and improving on the guitar, and I'm also far from satisfied myself, and not asking for help when I was working on these really challenging techniques and theory concepts in the time between my beginner years and the time that I studied at the conservatory is probably one of the absolute biggest mistakes I made as a player so far, and that definitely cost me a couple of years of good progress. So I really hope that you can learn from my mistakes and that you got some great takeaways, some insights and some inspiration and motivation for your own guitar progress today. Make sure to check out my shred guitar community on Patreon if you would like to interact with me personally. I recently added the option to join my VIP club over there. With that one you have access to the secret Facebook group where all the interesting interactions between me and the students are happening, and you can also ask questions, get some personal coaching, upload files like video files, audio files, anything you would like to get feedback on. So make sure to check that out if that sounds interesting for you. Thanks a lot for tuning in today and for watching this video until the end. That really means a lot to me. Remember to leave a like in case you enjoyed it and to subscribe in case you're not a part of this guitar community yet. I will see you again in the next video. All the best and have a lot of fun practicing until then.